I've come across a story that really highlights the absolute nonsense that is the concept of cultural appropriation, at least to the extent it's going. So, a young woman in the United States, doesn't say specifically where she is based, but a young American woman, white woman who has no Chinese heritage, has decided to wear a qipao. That is a traditional style Chinese dress, often made of silk, not always, um, for her prom, right? Um, and basically, unfortunately, she's received a backlash, and it seems to be led by one Twitter user by the name of Jeremy Lamb, who's based in Salt Lake City. Now, this young woman, 18 years old, has been accused of cultural appropriation, and Jeremy Lamb's tweet stated, my culture is not your goddamn prom dress." Um, and apparently that's been shared 42,000 times. It went viral. So this young woman's being targeted for what? Wanting to enjoy a big night. Her name's Kezia Dum, and to her credit, she has stood her ground. She says, "I'm not deleting the tweet," because she posted a tweet of her in the dress with her partner and with her friends. And she's clearly just enjoying herself. I could understand if there was a situation of someone mocking a culture, but this is just crazy. And it's not the first time we've seen this sort of rubbish. There was the case of the young guy who sported dreadlocks, young white guy. He got a backlash for that. Now, the interesting thing about this case, I'm looking at Daily Telegraph report. Guess who's defending her? Chinese people. Chinese people on Sina Weibo, which is a social networking site. I'm on it. It's a widely used social networking site. Um, she's got a lot of support on that from Chinese users who are saying that it isn't cultural appropriation, it's cultural appreciation. And they're complimenting her. They say she looks beautiful in it. And what's interesting is this guy, Jeremy Lamb, is probably an ABC, American born Chinese. And what the hell gives him a right to say it's my culture, as if he owns the culture because he has some Chinese heritage? I mean, this sort of nonsense. The same people who preach about cultural appropriation would be the very first people who would shout racism if white people didn't show any sort of interest in other cultures. It's just so absolute. I mean, what we're talking about here is a young woman on her special night just wanting to enjoy herself. And now what's happened? She's got all this abuse for nothing. Well, she hasn't went out to offend anyone. She hasn't said anything racist. The real racism is from Jeremy Lamb and his sort of mindset. It really pisses me off, to be quite honest. But like I say, it's refreshing to see the number of Chinese users who are supporting her and criticizing him. Um, but it isn't just ABCs who have this mindset, or BBCs. And I'm not generalizing. I'm not saying everyone in the Chinese diaspora are that sort of regressive left politically correct idiots. They're not. But it's also white liberals who have this mindset, and it's just so ridiculous. A while back, there was a case of yoga apparently is now being called cultural appropriation. Well, when you get down to it, what isn't cultural appropriation? If you take this argument to its extreme, it means that here in the UK, if you're a white person, you can never eat Indian curry, you cannot drive a Toyota vehicle because that's Japanese technology. You could never listen to Korean pop music. You could never, it goes on and on and on. Where do you draw the line? The fact is, the world is more interconnected than ever before. And in diverse multicultural places like the United States, like the UK, then of course there's a melting pot of cultures. The likes of Jeremy Lamb with their tribal mindset is probably one of these people who is like, keep to your own. And he would probably have a lot of things to say about mixed couples as well, which I personally take issue with, having been in a relationship with a Chinese woman. So people like this are pathetic. And what I find unfortunate, though, is the number of people who support his mentality. And it's a very regressive, nauseating thing that is actually unique to the West. You don't see this crap in China itself. In fact, in China, there's an interest in Western people who appreciate Chinese culture. I remember a colleague of mine, a white British American woman, she wore a cheapao for an event that we were at, and the Chinese women who were there were fascinated with it. They just wanted to have pictures with her and so on. There was very good feelings. Um, and if we look at China itself, for that matter, increasingly a number of young Chinese women are wearing white Western style wedding dresses for their big day. Just as I wish this young woman in the United States well on her big night, I wish them well on their big day. And I just find it very sad and frustrating that there's people with such a tribal mindset that they think they own a culture. I get it, in the sense that, if you're white and Western, you're never going to be Chinese. But that doesn't mean you can't appreciate Chinese culture. I appreciate Chinese culture. I like traditional Chinese music. And I forget the name of the garment, but I bought a traditional men's style of costume over there, which I still have. I haven't worn it much because it's delicate fabric. But, if I do, and I get that sort of abuse, I would not sit down. And to her credit, she hasn't. She stood by it. She said she didn't mean to offend anyone, but she's not going to delete the tweet. Fair play to her. I hope there's a backlash against this prick Jeremy Lamb, because that sort of bullying mindset, and that's what it is, needs to be challenged. It's just so interesting. It isn't Chinese people themselves, mainland Chinese. It tends to come from Western Chinese who are brainwashed by political correctness and identity politics and all the other crap that comes with the regressive left. I am so, so fed up with it because there's a totalitarian aspect to that, and it's just such nonsense. Um, like I say, it's different if someone is mocking the culture, then I can understand the contention, but that isn't what's going on here. If you look at the photos, and I'll put a link to the report, she's smiling, she's just enjoying her big night. And it's really sad that hopefully, she won't let it get to her, but it's really sad that it's happened. And I think it's a good example of just how absurd this cultural appropriation rhetoric has become. I'm not generalizing anyone. I'm not saying it's every. I'm sure there's many level-headed ABCs and BBCs who don't have this mentality, but quite a number do, and so do certain white PC people. It's just such nonsense. It's just such absolute nonsense because I really think people like Jeremy Lamb would be happy if they